Hey guys, it's Lisa. Welcome to Banning, Panning and Beyond, and welcome to my first palette palette, yep. Hey guys, it's Lisa. Welcome to Banning, Panning and Beyond, and welcome to my first palette bingo. So for those of you just quickly who are aware that I have recently been away on a girls trip with my sister to visit my uncle, I thought that my next video would be about that, but I've been really busy since I got back from being away, and I haven't had a chance to actually go through the footage and see whether any of it is even usable. So I will get to that, but I didn't want to wait that long before I got my next video out. And recently I've been sort of chatting with a friend that I met on Instagram. Her name's Nathalie, and I will put her account name up on the screen, and we're just chatting about, you know, my next video, and yeah, and I asked her if she had any suggestions, and she said palette bingo, and I thought it was actually quite perfect because another girl that I've been following, her account is Nat Snowby. So hi Nat. She recently did a zodiac or astrology palette, which I thought was really awesome, and we're chatting about that, and I said to her I'd be interested in doing one myself, so she encouraged me to do that. And actually I really didn't know where to start, and she guided me towards a website where I could find out. I mean, obviously I knew that my sun sign was Libra, but I wasn't sure about my moon sign, or the other one she used was rising sign. So she guided me to the website where I could put my details in, and so it turns out that I have a moon sign of Sagittarius as well as a rising sign for Sagittarius, and then it's just a matter of looking up what colours were associated with those sun signs. So I looked up what I could get, and Nat sent through some for me as well. And so yeah, I've got the palette here, which I'll show you in a second, but basically there was 4 colours that were associated with both Libra and Sagittarius, which happened to be blue, green, purple, and blue, green. No, it's just blue, green, and purple. That's right. And pink was just with Libra, and brown was just with Sagittarius. And so definitely, I wanted to include the blue, purple and green, but the palette with 5 different colours, because I wanted the pink and the brown because they were associated with separate signs, but out of the ones that were mutual between the two, that I wanted to include them all, but I had to make a choice because I only had the palette, well I should say the palette I wanted to use, I either had a relatively large empty magnetic palette, or I had to go with a 12. So I thought, well, I don't want just like 2 of each colour or whatever, so the minimum I wanted to have was 3. So I decided to just stick with the blue, purple, brown and pink, and have 3 different colours for those. And otherwise I just thought the palette's going to get way too big, and I'm like, let's face it, I'm not really that experienced when it comes to using colour. I'm not that confident in using colour, and I am trying to push myself a little bit, but I've still got a long way to go. So and we decided on the colours. So when I say we, it was my husband and I, because I decided to get him to pick the colours, because he'd actually picked colours for me as part of the 10 to February challenge that I was doing on Instagram as well, and I got a really good response to that from most people. My stepson told me that I looked like the Joker, so you know, I'll try to take that in the most positive way that I can. But anyway, so I knew that my husband would definitely pick colours that are a bit more out there than what I would have done, so I decided to rope him in with me, and basically the plan was to just get all of my singles that I've got in magnetic palettes, and that was what we had to choose from. So otherwise it would just be too hard. You know, I didn't want to be trying to depot pans and things like that to put in it. Yeah, obviously then we had to make sure that the pans were all the same size, because it wasn't like an open empty palette as such, so we could just put multiple sizes in. They're all limited to a single pan. I think it's maybe the 26 mil. And yeah, so that was kind of where we started. And obviously I tried to guide him and said to him, you know, I'd really like to have a light shimmer with hooded eyes. I wanted to have the light shimmer for the lid, and I said to him to try and get me a medium sort of depth for a sort of more crease or transition colour, and also a darker colour, so I could deepen the crease and sort of the outer eye. But unfortunately we had to work with what I actually had available, so that dictated what could go into the palette as well. So that's kind of what was behind the creation of the palette. Now, I've pre-swatched because I just thought I'll make a complete mess of it if I try to swatch live. But first what I'll do is I'll show you the palette. So it's gone into one of my old Davina magnetic palettes, which was the anodized collection that I got in it, but I took those out because I have a big Adept palette that's got all my Davina shadows in it. So you'll see what I mean when I open it up. It's got sort of slots. I hope you can see that, and there's like the little notches where you can easily get them out. So that's the palette that we ended up with. So we've got the blue row here, which kind of, they're like a sort of look like a greeny blue, they're not like a navy. And then the browns, I mean the camera is actually throwing the colors off substantially, and then they are more browns, more like a bronzy color down there. And then we have the pinks and the purples, and the purples are quite pinky purples as well. So but in the end, so that's sort of where we started with and what the aim was, and that's what we ended up with. So the swatches I've got here, and I'm already smudging it on the top of my arm, so I'm not sure how well you guys can see that, but there we've got the blues, and unfortunately I might just re-swatch that one actually. This is the Colourpop Antimatter. It's absolutely beautiful, and I'm sure you can see that it looks like it's got a very like a black base, but then it's got the blue metallic through it. And I'll put a picture up as well on the screen of the palette with all the brands and the shade names. So these two, again, I'm not sure, it's depending on the angle I look at the screen, but these looked quite similar like in the pan, but that one's quite a bright purple, and that's a bit deeper. And then we have like this, some photos this pink looks quite red, but it is a bright pink, and this one's gone more of a rusty color. So again, my husband and I don't always agree on like some shades. I would say, oh, that's blue, and if you no it's green, and I mean, oh, that's pink, if you no, that's purple. So anyway, we got what we got, and so that's where we're at with the palette. But then with the bingo, and Nat did she did a bingo with her zodiac or astrology palette as well. But what I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I've like never actually done palette bingo before. So and after Nat said, oh, you know, and I knew that there was the version like that I'd put up on Instagram, which I'll go through. I'll bring it up on my phone and just make sure I don't miss anything. But basically, I had an idea of what it was about, but I wasn't 100% sure on all the rules. But where I ended up looking it up and found a couple of YouTube videos on it, which basically confirmed that it's meant to be 5 shades, which is what I had planned originally, just for 5 shades, and that's basically 1 number per letter of the word bingo. And apparently, according to what I researched, and you're supposed to use all 5 shades once they're, you know, the numbers are randomly selected, and there's a few different ways that you can go about it in regards to how you select those shades. But yeah, so once the the shades are selected, you're supposed to use all of those in it, in the look, but you're also allowed to pull whatever you like into it to complete it, which made me feel better because with my palette bingo, if anyone's watched my last video, you'll know that I'm also doing the Roulette Pan collab, so I have to use my Urban Decay Naked 1 palette, so I'm going to use that in conjunction with this one, so that'll help me with, I guess, blending out some of the brighter colours and just giving me a few more options, laying down a base and things like that. So yeah, so what else? I think that was pretty much it with the palette bingo, and it's kind of like a one-off deal. So I decided I wanted mine to, I'm just going to rub these off and see whether any of these actually stain. So I've got a blue one that's staining and one of the purples. So that's okay. You probably can't even see that with the light anyway, but yeah, so I decided to do mine a little bit differently, like I said, and I rather than use a random number generator, I asked, I put in my stories on Instagram for people to select numbers between 1 and 12, and like I said, I'll put a picture up, so I'll show you how I've numbered the palette, and it's basically, I suppose I can even run through it quickly now just in case I forget to insert the picture, but basically it's 1 and then 2, 3, 4 all across the one, then like that top row, and then we go 5, 6, 7 and 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12. So I got some of my followers to pick a number between 1 and 12, and as soon as I got the first 5 like, what's the word for it, unique, five unique numbers, I guess, because a few people picked the same numbers. So once I had 5 unique ones, that was where I planned to stop, but I ended up getting one more response with a 6th number, and I thought, oh, what the heck, you know. Actually worked out quite well because there's 12 in the palette, so I'm going to use 6, but it doesn't, don't have to use all 6 in each look, and that's where it becomes a little bit different. So yeah, so I've got those 6 numbers which are corresponded with the shades in the palette, and I am going to use those 6 shades for a full week. Depending, I don't know how many looks I'll get done. I don't wear makeup every day. I will try to wear makeup as often as I can, but basically I've set myself a goal to use at least 3 of those shades that have been selected in a look in conjunction then with the Urban Decay palette as well, and I'm going to do that all week. And so that's as far as I'm going to tell you in that regard, because I'm going to have this palette bingo running for a full 4 weeks, and I'm going to change it up every week. So what I'll do in a week's time, I will give you an update, and I'll try and film after I've done each look, so I can put that all together and show you what I've done for the week, and then I will then explain what my challenge will be with that palette for the following week, because it's probably just going to be way too confusing to try and explain it all up front. So I'm just going to quickly pull up on my Instagram, make sure I haven't missed anything. Let me just double check here. So, oh, I may as well just read out what I've written here. It's a palette bingo, or at least my version of it. Thank you to those of you who participated in selecting numbers for my palette bingo. The first 6 numbers to be chosen were 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 12. I have numbered the shades and indicated the ones chosen with a flamingo, so like I said, I'll insert that, and flamingo was, you know, of course. I will be using this palette starting next week, which for me will be in 2 days time and for a full 4 weeks, but these are the shades I'll be using for the first week. To coincide with my Roulette Pen Collab participation, I'll be using my Zodiac palette in conjunction with my Urban Decay Naked One palette. Blah blah blah. I'm setting myself a goal of using a minimum of 3 out of the 6 colours from a Zodiac palette per look, and I have to use I have to have used each colour at least once, so that's at least once, not in each look, but at least once that week. This might not seem very challenging to some, but this is my first time at Palette Bingo, so I'm just feeling my way through the first week and may up the game for consequent weeks. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm hoping that makes sense. So just making sure that my flamingo is not changing my focus because I haven't been looking at the screen. So yes, I'm pretty excited. I am going to be very challenged. So once again, here is the palette, and I mean, I've had a really good response. Everyone's saying how pretty it is, but I don't think everyone understands quite how scared I am of colour. So I am interested to see how well I'll cope with this palette and what sort of looks I can create. And again, you know, the whole point of doing these things is to make you use up what you've got and to learn more about your collection, and hopefully learn as you go, and you know, maybe you'll fall in love with something that you've never used before, and you know, if not, then it gets decluttered and moved on to somebody else. So we shall see. Like I said, I will be back in a week with all the looks that I've created, and yeah, and in the meantime, like I said, I'm going to try and go through the footage of my trip away. And thank you to anyone that's watching that messaged me on Instagram, because it was quite a tough trip. I have seen my uncle quite a few times since he got diagnosed with lung cancer, and it's still never easy to say goodbye, because you just never know whether or not it's going to be the last time that you're going to see that person, and he's not the first family member that I have lost to cancer. So it doesn't get any easier, and I don't know how emotional I'm going to be looking back at the footage. There are a few photos I can put up of my uncle, but I didn't feel right about actually filming him. But I do have some footage of the trip, and I think my auntie's on there, and just the place where they live, and I've got a surprise. Anyway, I'm not going to keep going on into more detail. That's even if I don't show any footage, I can, in my next video, I can sort of go into more detail, and that will be for my recap of February. And I do believe that is relevant because of the fact of what sort of mental state you're in, and emotionally how well you're coping, and how that sort of ties in when you're on a no buy or a low buy, or just life in general, but how that can affect your compulsion to shop, and just trigger certain coping mechanisms. So I'll get to that. And anyway, more positive note, I'll look forward to using my Zodiac palette for my palette bingo. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.